Welcome to our channel, where stories come alive and lessons shape our lives. Have you ever been judged before someone truly knew you? Or maybe you've been the one making assumptions without realizing the impact. Today's story will take you on a powerful journey through the skies of New York, uncovering how prejudice, accountability, and true leadership can transform not just a company, but lives. Before we take off, don't forget to hit that like button, share and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more meaningful stories right to your screen. To everyone who has liked and subscribed, may you be blessed with good health, ease in every matter, freedom from debt, solutions to every difficulty, healing for those who are sick, and endless blessings that light your path every day. And please, after watching, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, or what this story meant to you. We love hearing from you. Now, buckle up and let's begin the journey. LaGuardia Airport bustled with its usual rhythm of departing heels, rolling suitcases, and muffled gate announcements. In the premium lounge of a private terminal, polished glass walls cast reflections of tailored suits and designer luggage. Pilots exchanged clipped pleasantries. Assistants fussed over last-minute schedules. And in the corner, unnoticed by most, a woman in a charcoal hoodie and scuffed white sneakers reclined in an armchair, quietly reviewing a leather folder on her lap. Her name was Dr. Raina Ellison. Outside, a sleek white Gulfstream jet gleamed under the noon sun. Its engines whirred softly, preparing for a direct flight to Albany. Raina glanced at the digital clock above the service desk. Her boarding time had come and gone, but no one had called her name. She stood, approached the counter, and cleared her throat. The attendant looked up, startled. She was middle-aged, tightly coiled in a pristine uniform. Her name tag read Gloria. Yes, Gloria asked with a thin smile. I'm Dr. Ellison. I'm scheduled for the 12:30 flight on Meridian 1. Gloria's smile faltered just slightly. That can't be right. She glanced at the passenger manifest, then at Raina, and back again. Are you sure you're on this flight? Raina's eyes narrowed. Positive. Gloria hesitated. I think you might be in the wrong terminal. This area is for our executive-level passengers. I know where I am, Raina said calmly, pulling out her credentials. And I assure you, this is my flight. Gloria barely glanced at the ID before waving over a flight attendant. Can you escort this guest to the standard lounge, please? Just then, a voice behind them broke the tension. She's not a guest, it said. She's my boss. Both women turned. A tall man in a Meridian flight uniform approached, his jacket perfectly pressed. He had sharp cheekbones, smooth skin, and a direct, steady gaze. His name was First Officer Malik Dorsey. Gloria flushed. I'm sorry. I didn't. She's the lead passenger, Malik said. And your assumptions are your problem. He turned to Raina. Apologies for the delay, Dr. Ellison. We're ready to board. Without a word, Raina followed him toward the jet, folder in hand. Inside the plane, luxury surrounded them. Cream leather seats, walnut paneling, and chilled refreshments waited on a polished tray. Two other passengers, a real estate magnate and a startup founder, sat across from each other, both deep in their devices. Malik helped Raina with her carry-on and whispered, You okay? I'm used to it, she said quietly, but I don't intend to stay used to it. He gave her a short nod before returning to the cockpit. A few minutes later, Gloria boarded to complete her final checks. She paused near Raina's seat, the apology forming in her mouth but never leaving. She straightened and walked away instead. The cabin door closed. The engine hum intensified. The jet began its taxi toward the runway. Captain Andrea Quinn, a seasoned pilot with icy composure, welcomed passengers over the intercom. This is your captain speaking. We're clear for takeoff. Flight time to Albany is 48 minutes. Sit back and enjoy the ride. As the plane lifted, the city shrank below into a lattice of rivers and steel. Raina leaned her head against the window. Her mind wasn't on the sky. It was on the policy document in her folder, the one she was about to deliver in Albany. A policy that could change how one of the largest transportation companies in the country handled internal equity and leadership. She wasn't just a passenger. She wasn't just a doctor. And she was done being underestimated. In the rear galley, Gloria spoke quietly with Captain Quinn. I still think she's in the wrong seat, Gloria said. She's on a manifest, Quinn replied curtly. Drop it. But she... Drop it, Quinn repeated. They both turned as the flight door clicked shut. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was pressure. Pressure that was about to crack. The jet leveled at cruising altitude, the skyline now a blur behind them. Sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off champagne flutes and polished tray tables. But Dr. Raina Ellison wasn't sipping champagne. She was annotating the final section of her presentation, the executive draft of a policy proposal that would overhaul Meridian Air's corporate equity standards. Across the aisle, Gloria moved briskly down the cabin with a silver tray of refreshments. She paused beside Raina without making eye contact. Can I offer you something to drink? Raina looked up. Still water. Gloria nodded and poured, her movements stiff. She didn't apologize. Raina didn't ask her to. Captain Andrea Quinn emerged briefly from the cockpit. She exchanged a few words with one of the other passengers, then looked directly at Raina. Her face betrayed no expression, but her eyes lingered. Back in her seat, Gloria caught the glance and walked back toward the galley. There, she muttered under her breath. This is ridiculous. You'd think she owned the plane. Malik, overhearing, turned sharply from the coffee dispenser. She does. Gloria froze. Malik stepped closer, lowering his voice. Dr. Ellison is the majority shareholder of Meridian Air's parent company. She holds controlling interest. This aircraft is registered under her holding group. Gloria's mouth parted slightly. But no one told us. She doesn't have to tell you anything, he said. You assumed. Back in her seat, Raina reviewed a line from the policy summary that read, Equity begins where assumption ends. The irony made her smirk. Then a thud. Gloria, carrying another tray, had stumbled near the rear galley. One of the flutes shattered on the floor. Everyone turned. Captain Quinn exited the cockpit again. Everything okay? She asked sharply. Yes, Gloria said quickly, kneeling to clean the glass. Quinn glanced around the cabin. Her eyes landed on Raina, then shifted away. But something passed between them. Something unspoken. Raina folded her folder and placed it carefully beside her. She stood and walked calmly toward the cockpit. Quinn intercepted her. Passengers are not permitted in the flight deck. I'm not here to fly the plane, Raina said coolly. I'd like a word. In private. Quinn hesitated, then motioned toward the rear conference compartment, a soundproof suite used for high-level conversations. Malik appeared, opened the door, and waited as both women entered. He closed it behind them. Inside, the silence was thick. Raina sat. Quinn remained standing. I know who you are, Quinn said first. It's just, we weren't briefed. No, Raina said. You weren't briefed. But you made a decision the moment you saw me. That's what concerns me. Quinn's jaw tightened. This, Raina continued, sliding the folder across the table, is what I've been working on. A new company-wide framework for oversight, bias training, accountability, and transparent leadership restructuring. I plan to unveil it next quarter. But today changed that. Quinn opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the titles, the lines, the words that made her shift slightly in place. I know pilots are trained for emergencies, Raina said. But are you trained to see your own biases mid-flight? Quinn's lips parted, then closed again. You're right, she said finally. We weren't ready, and we owe you an apology. No, Raina replied. You owe your team a change. She stood, straightened her jacket, and walked to the door. Just before exiting, she turned slightly. I'm not asking to be seen differently because I'm powerful. I'm asking to be seen accurately because I'm present. Then she opened the door and stepped into the aisle. Back in the cabin, Gloria pretended to organize napkins. Malik looked up from his seat, his expression unreadable. Raina didn't speak as she walked past Gloria, but just before she sat, she glanced over her shoulder. You judged me because of what I wore, not because of who I am. That's the root of this. Fix it. Gloria said nothing. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was accountability. The jet flew on, cutting through clean blue skies, unaware that 35,000 feet below, the story of who held power and how it should be recognized had already begun to shift. The jet continued its path toward New York, engines humming, the cabin quiet with the kind of tension that doesn't rattle but settles like fog. Gloria stayed mostly out of sight, keeping to the galley, letting the junior attendants handle the aisles. Her hands moved mechanically, folding, sorting, rearranging, but her mind was nowhere near the supplies. She had replayed the scene in her head a dozen times. The hoodie, the sneakers, the way she'd offered sparkling water like it was charity. She hadn't just underestimated Raina. She'd revealed something about herself, and she didn't like what she saw. Inside the conference compartment, Captain Quinn remained alone, staring at the document Dr. Ellison had left behind, a corporate equity overhaul. It wasn't just legal jargon and policy points. It was personal, and it struck deeper than expected. She'd always seen herself as professional, composed, fair. But fairness wasn't about intention. It was about impact. A knock broke her thoughts. Malik entered quietly. "She's not trying to humiliate anyone," he said. "She's trying to change things before someone else gets humiliated the same way." Quinn met his eyes. "I didn't think I'd be in this situation. I never thought I'd be the one who needed to learn." "None of us do," he said. "Until we do." In the main cabin, the other passengers stayed glued to their devices, their conversations light, unaware, or perhaps choosing to stay unaware, of the storm that had just passed through their plane. Gloria finally emerged from the galley and approached Raina's seat. She stood silently for a moment before speaking. "Dr. Ellison," she began, voice low and unsteady. "May I sit for a moment?" Raina looked up, then nodded. Gloria lowered herself into the seat across from her, legs crossed, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I need to say this," she said. "I was wrong. I treated you like you didn't belong, and I didn't even stop to ask myself why." Raina studied her face. There was no performance here, no PR tone, just discomfort, and something genuine behind it. "I judged you because of how you looked," Gloria admitted. "I assumed, and I'm not proud of that." Raina leaned back slightly. "How long have you been flying?" 7 years. Mostly corporate routes. Before that, I worked private hospitality. So you've seen a wide range of passengers." Gloria nodded. "Yes. And still, I saw you and thought you were out of place." Raina didn't blink. "You didn't see me. You saw who you expected me to be." The silence returned. Not sharp, not punishing, just undeniable. "I want to change," Gloria said. "Not just apologize. I want to understand what I didn't see before." "That takes work," Raina said quietly. "Not words. It takes letting yourself be uncomfortable, over and over, until your habits shift." Gloria swallowed. "Then I'll do the work." Just then, Malik approached. Seatbelt sign just came on. "We're beginning descent into JFK." Raina nodded and stood, returning her folder to her bag. Gloria remained seated, watching her. "Thank you," she said softly. Raina didn't respond right away, but before stepping into the aisle, she said, "If you really mean that, show it to the next person who boards this plane wearing something you weren't expecting." Raina walked calmly to her seat as the cabin crew began final checks. Captain Quinn's voice came over the intercom, calm and steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our final descent into New York City. Weather is clear, 71 degrees. We'll be on the ground in approximately 18 minutes. Cabin crew, prepare for landing." Outside, the skyline appeared through the scattered clouds, Manhattan's silhouette etched against the afternoon sky. Inside, Catherine fastened her belt, not out of protocol, but with a sense of awareness she hadn't felt in years. Malik gave her a nod. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't approval. It was acknowledgement that she was beginning again. The wheels touched down with practiced ease, the aircraft rolling smoothly onto the tarmac. At the private terminal, a sleek black sedan waited on the asphalt. As the jet taxied into position, Raina closed her folder with finality and stood. She retrieved her things, stepped into the aisle, and made her way toward the door. Captain Quinn was there waiting, her uniform neat, her expression open. "I read every word," she said. Raina didn't stop walking. "Then don't wait for the next flight to act on it." She descended the steps without looking back. The door of the sedan opened. She climbed in, closed it, and the vehicle pulled away, leaving the aircraft and the old assumptions behind. Back inside the jet, Gloria stood in the galley, staring out the tiny oval window. The world had shifted. Now it was her turn to decide whether she would shift with it. 2 weeks later, the lobby of a sleek glass building in Midtown buzzed with early morning energy. Employees scanned badges, digital kiosks flickered with press releases, and somewhere above it all, Raina Ellison stood behind a glass wall, staring down at the city she once thought she'd never break into. Meridian Equity, now fully under her control, operated from the 37th floor. Since her return from the flight, a quiet transformation had begun. It wasn't broadcast with billboards or social media filters. It was slower, deeper, made of policy rewrites, leadership reshuffles, and a level of accountability rarely seen in an industry addicted to appearance. Inside the executive boardroom, 6 individuals waited at the table. Suits crisp, smiles thin. They had seen the footage. The slap had gone viral for a day, edited into clips, captions, reaction videos. But then something more unusual happened. It was followed by silence. No statements, no spin, no deflection. And then came action. Raina entered the room, her presence quiet but unmoving. As of this morning, she began, Gloria Bennin is off active duty. She'll be entering our new realignment program. It's mandatory. One executive, a man in a navy tie with silver sideburns, shifted in his chair. There could be PR fallout, he said. We can reframe it. Say she was under stress. No, Raina replied. We don't reframe. We don't rewrite. We rebuild. A pause. The woman seated beside him leaned forward. Do we have a media strategy? We're not preparing a response, Raina said. We're preparing new leadership standards. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. If we're going to make changes that matter, we have to stop hiding behind press releases. We don't evolve by denying what happened. We evolve by being honest about what we allowed and what we refused to allow moving forward. No one spoke. One assistant scribbled notes frantically. Raina turned toward the windows. Beyond the skyline, flights cut through the morning sky like threads being woven. She knew the truth. The slap had never been the story. What followed it? Who took responsibility? Who stayed silent? Who learned? Was the real narrative. And now, she controlled how it would be written. Across the river in Jersey City, Gloria Bennin sat alone in a training room. The space was clean but unadorned. A whiteboard, a flickering projector, a binder full of pages with the Meridian seal embossed on each one. No uniform, no makeup, just a notebook half filled with scribbles and unease. On screen, a training module began. Not generic corporate speak, but footage, real and raw. A pilot describing how he was questioned outside his own hangar. A black teenager explaining how airport staff pulled her aside 3 times in one terminal. A child whispering to her mother, "Why do they look scared when I sit next to them?" The screen went black. Then a new face appeared. Raina, centered, direct, eyes focused on the camera. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means you're part of a company I now lead. And that means something." Gloria leaned forward. "This work isn't about shame," Raina said. "It's about change. It's about asking yourself one hard question every day. Did I treat someone better today because I finally saw them for who they are, not who I assumed they were?" The video ended. Gloria didn't move for a long time. Then, slowly, she picked up her pen and wrote down one sentence. "See before you assume." The words sat stark on the page. Back in Manhattan, a new flight prepared for takeoff. A young black woman in a gray hoodie and white sneakers approached the private jet stairs. She smiled politely as the flight attendant greeted her. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Stevens," the attendant said, voice warm. "Would you prefer sparkling or still?" No hesitation, no veiled glances. Inside the cabin, she took her seat without question, without needing to explain why she belonged there. The world hadn't changed overnight. It never does, but had shifted. Just enough. On the 37th floor, Raina looked down at the street, where cars weaved like quiet threads in a massive loom. She didn't smile. Not yet. There was still more work to do. But she allowed herself one deep breath. Sometimes leadership isn't about announcing your power. Sometimes it's about removing the weight from someone else's shoulders before you even tell them your name. By the time the next executive meeting rolled around, word of the realignment program had spread through Meridian's corporate branches. Some whispered about it in elevators, unsure what it really meant. Others, especially those who had worked in silence for years, began to hope. It wasn't just about one incident anymore. It was about the culture that let it happen in the first place. Raina Ellison sat in her office, a minimalist space with glass walls and very little decoration. A single framed quote hung above her desk. "The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. Outside, the city buzzed with the usual noise. Car horns, foot traffic, muted sirens. But inside, a different kind of tension brewed. The boardroom was full again. Raina stepped in, greeted only by the shuffling of papers and shifting gazes. "I want to be clear," she said as she took her seat at the head of the table. "This is not about damage control. This is about repair." A senior executive, Terrence Doyle, cleared his throat. "Raina, we understand your passion, but people are nervous. Stockholders want stability." "They'll get it," she replied, "but not at the expense of dignity." He frowned. "We just want to avoid alienating clients." "You think clients haven't noticed?" Raina asked. "Do you think passengers don't talk? Don't record? Don't share their experiences? The only difference now is that we're not pretending we didn't hear them." She placed a folder on the table, sliding it forward with slow precision. "This is the updated Leadership Conduct Charter. Every department head will review it, sign it, and distribute it. No more optional workshops. No more untracked complaints. Every incident gets reviewed. Every leader gets held accountable." Silence. Then a voice from the back, from Liza Green, one of the few women of color on the senior team. "It's overdue," she said quietly, but firmly. "And if you need help implementing it, I'm in." Raina met her gaze. "Thank you. I'll be holding everyone to it, myself included." The meeting adjourned. Quietly. No applause. Just movement, contemplation, a shift that didn't yet have words. Later that evening, Gloria Benton walked through the doors of a Midtown Community Center. It wasn't a Meridian building. It wasn't part of any requirement. It was something she had found on her own. A local workshop on implicit bias in communication, hosted by a nonprofit with no ties to the aviation industry. She sat at the back at first, listening. A woman on stage spoke about microaggressions, about the difference between intent and impact, about how we are all shaped by systems we don't always see. Gloria didn't raise her hand, but she took notes. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about whether she would get her job back. She was thinking about who she was when she wore the uniform, who she was when she wasn't. After the session ended, she approached the speaker. "I'm not here for credit," she said quietly. "I'm just trying to learn." The woman looked at her for a long second, then nodded. "That's where it starts." Across town, Raina sat alone in a small jazz bar, tucked beneath a bookstore. It was a place her father used to take her when she was a child. A hidden gem, never too loud, where music wrapped around you instead of overpowering you. On stage, a saxophonist played something low and melancholic. In a booth nearby, a group of women talked about the future of aviation, not knowing who sat just a few feet away. Raina listened, letting their words drift. "She's serious about this change," one of them said. "I heard she shut down a whole division last week. Said if it's broken, you don't decorate it. You rebuild it." Raina smiled slightly. It wasn't about being overheard. It was about being believed. The song ended. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the silence land. Then she stood, left a tip on the table, and stepped out into the night. The air was crisp. The city lit up like it was alive. No cameras, no meetings, just a quiet promise made to herself. Change didn't begin in boardrooms. It began with mirrors and messages, and the choice to see both clearly. It had been exactly 1 month since the flight that changed everything. Gloria Benton stood outside Meridian's Midtown headquarters, holding a plain canvas tote bag and wearing no uniform. Her ID badge had been reactivated, but she hadn't worn it yet. The reinstatement wasn't guaranteed. She had completed the realignment program, passed the assessments, sat through difficult panels, and participated in restorative conversations. But this final step, the evaluation interview with the Internal Ethics Board, would determine whether she could return to active duty. Inside, the lobby buzzed with executives and visitors. The building's sleek, modern interior was mirrored glass, marble floors, and strategic lighting. Gloria felt every pair of eyes that glanced at her, or through her. "Benton," a voice called. It was a young staffer from HR. "They're ready for you." She followed him through a secured hallway and into a smaller boardroom than the one used for executive meetings. Around the table sat 3 individuals, none of them familiar. Neutral expressions, no signals of judgment or support, just procedure. "Miss Benton," one of them said, "please be seated." She did, quietly. Her hands were calm, but her throat was tight. "You've completed the realignment program," another said. "We've reviewed the material, your assessments, and your reflections. But this conversation is about one thing: demonstrated change. Not what you say, what you've chosen to do." Gloria nodded. "I understand. Tell us, in your own words," the third board member asked, "why we should trust you again." There was no script, no pre-written apology, no speech. "I don't think you should," Gloria said calmly. "Not until I earn it. Not until you've seen enough to believe it. And I won't ask for special treatment. I will work for your trust every single day, whether I'm reinstated or not." The board members exchanged glances. She continued, "I used to think bias was something other people had, that I could tell the difference between caution and prejudice. But what I've learned is that most of us are trained to make snap judgments without even realizing it. I didn't just misread a passenger. I acted out of a pattern I hadn't questioned in myself. That's what I have to change. And that's what I've started changing." "Give us an example," one of them said. Gloria took a breath. "After the program, I volunteered for Meridian's outreach initiative in Harlem. We've been talking with high school students about careers in aviation. I went in thinking I was there to teach them. But one of the students, Kayla, asked me, why would I want to fly for people who don't think I belong? And I couldn't answer her. Not then. So I listened. And I promised her I'd help build a place where that question doesn't have to be asked." The silence in the room shifted. It wasn't warmer, not yet, but it was listening. When the interview ended, Gloria was told she'd receive a decision within 24 hours. She walked out into the city light, not with relief, but with a quiet steadiness. Across town, Raina was preparing for an internal broadcast to all Meridian employees. A quarterly address, but this time would be different. It wasn't about revenue or expansions. It was about the culture shift. As she stepped into the recording studio, the director gave her a quick nod. "Rolling in 3, 2... Raina looked directly into the lens. "I want to speak not as your CEO, but as your colleague," she said. "We spent the last several weeks asking hard questions of each other and of ourselves. And now, the only thing that matters is what we do next." She paused. "This isn't a campaign. This is a commitment. If you made mistakes, own them. If you've been harmed, speak up. If you're unsure, ask." But silence is no longer a strategy we accept. Across hundreds of screens, from terminals in New York to break rooms in Denver, her message echoed. Back in Harlem, the young student Kayla replayed the video twice. Then again, Gloria's face appeared on a new webpage under the realignment program testimonials. No edits, just her voice. "I'm not proud of who I was that day," she said, "but I'm proud of who I'm becoming." That evening, she received the call. Reinstatement granted. Conditional, monitored, but real. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She texted one person. "Raina, thank you for seeing the work. I'll keep doing it. Every day." Raina replied, 2 words. "Keep going." The early morning light filtered softly through the window of Meridian's training center in Brooklyn. Gloria Benton sat quietly among a small group of fresh recruits and veteran staff. Her uniform was crisp, her badge gleaming with the Meridian emblem. But something deeper had shifted. The weight of her journey sat alongside the pride of her present. Raina Fields observed from across the room. The CEO no longer just a distant figure, but a leader who carried the lessons of the company's darkest hour and its brightest hopes. Today was the day Meridian launched its new pilot mentorship program, a cornerstone of the cultural transformation Raina had vowed to lead. Gloria stood up when her name was called. She walked to the front of the room, not as someone seeking forgiveness, but as a woman who had earned her place through honesty, humility, and action. "I know what it means to be judged before you're known," she said to the group. "But I also know what it means to rise above those judgments. This program isn't just about flying planes. It's about flying with integrity, empathy, and respect for every person on this journey." Across New York, the city hummed with its usual energy. Taxi horns, footsteps on pavement, the distant murmur of subway trains. But inside Meridian, a new chapter was unfolding. Later that afternoon, Raina met with her executive team in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the skyline. The atmosphere was firm but hopeful. "We've seen the ripple effects of what started with a moment of confrontation," Raina said. "But it's more than just one story. It's the culture we rebuild every day, on the tarmac, in the cockpit, and across every hallway in this company. One executive nodded. The metrics show increased engagement. Our workforce diversity is improving, but the real change is in the conversations people are having. Raina smiled softly. That's the true flight path. Continuous learning, accountability, and courage to see each other clearly. In the days that followed, stories like Gloria's became a beacon. Pilots, flight attendants, ground staff, and executives shared their experiences openly, forging connections that went beyond policy statements. A culture of inclusion and respect began to take wing. At a community event in Harlem, Gloria met Kayla again. The young student's eyes sparkled with a newfound sense of possibility. "You really changed," Kayla said simply. Gloria smiled. "I'm still changing. That's the point." As dusk settled over the city, Raina stood on Meridian's rooftop terrace, looking out at the skyline. The lights of New York twinkled like stars, a constellation of stories, struggles, and hopes. Real power, she knew, did not announce itself with fanfare. It moved quietly, steadily, taking flight on wings forged by truth and courage. The end. Moral lessons from the story. Introduction. Stories that explore human behavior, social dynamics, and leadership challenges often offer timeless moral lessons. Wings of Change is no exception. Set in New York, it depicts a transformative journey within a corporate aviation company where personal biases, power struggles, accountability, and growth intersect. The story revolves around Gloria Benton and Raina Fields, whose interactions ignite a chain reaction leading to cultural transformation within Meridian Lux. Alongside the tension, apology, accountability, and leadership, the narrative teaches us crucial lessons about empathy, justice, humility, and the power of authentic change. In the following, I will delve deeply into 5 major moral lessons this story imparts, supported by reflections and broader applications. Lesson 1. The danger and cost of prejudice and assumptions. At the heart of the story is an incident born from a snap judgment. Gloria Benton, dressed casually and simply, is misjudged by a colleague who assumes she does not belong. This moment exposes how deeply ingrained biases, whether conscious or unconscious, can lead to unfair treatment and alienation. Reflection. Prejudice thrives on assumptions. It shortcuts the complex process of truly knowing another person, instead imposing a narrative based on appearance, status, or stereotype. In the story, the colleague's instant distrust and hostility toward Gloria are not isolated. They reflect wider societal tendencies to judge based on surface-level indicators. This kind of prejudice is costly. It damages relationships, diminishes individual potential, and fractures workplace culture. It erodes trust and fosters resentment. In professional settings, it can lead to lost opportunities, lower morale, and even legal consequences. Broader implications. Being mindful of our implicit biases requires active effort. We must question our first impressions and be willing to see beyond our assumptions. Organizations must implement training and policies that encourage equity and inclusion, recognizing the harm prejudice causes. On a personal level, each of us should examine how our judgments may unconsciously limit others or ourselves. Lesson 2. Accountability is the foundation of true leadership. The story's pivotal moment is when Raina Fields, the CEO, confronts the problem head-on rather than brushing it under the rug. She holds the team accountable, not only the individual who acted out of bias, but also the company culture that enabled such attitudes. Reflection. Accountability means accepting responsibility for actions and their consequences. It requires courage to admit when we are wrong, to face uncomfortable truths, and to make changes accordingly. Leadership rooted in accountability inspires trust and respect because it models integrity. Raina's decision to suspend the biased employee and initiate comprehensive training sends a clear message. No one is above scrutiny, and systemic problems must be addressed transparently. Broader implications. Leaders must foster a culture where accountability is normalized, not feared. Accountability should focus on learning and growth, not just punishment. Systems that support accountability, such as transparent reporting, clear standards, and regular feedback, are essential for sustainable change. Lesson 3. Growth comes through reflection and willingness to change. Gloria's arc from being judged unfairly to owning her mistakes and committing to retraining highlights the transformative power of self-reflection and humility. Reflection. Mistakes are inevitable, especially in complex social dynamics. What defines us is our response to those mistakes. Gloria's journey shows that admitting fault, understanding the harm caused, and taking concrete steps to change can rebuild trust and open new possibilities. Humility is central to growth. It requires us to set aside ego and defensiveness, to listen sincerely, and to accept uncomfortable feedback. This internal work leads not only to personal development, but also to improved relationships and more inclusive environments. Broader implications. Creating safe spaces where people can reflect on biases and behaviors without fear encourages continuous improvement. Personal growth fuels organizational progress. When individuals commit to change, the culture shifts. Embracing vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Lesson 4. True power is quiet, steady, and inclusive. Throughout the story, the contrast between noisy authority and quiet strength is clear. True leadership and power do not require spectacle or dominance. Instead, they are found in consistent actions that uplift others and cultivate fairness. Reflection. Reina's leadership style embodies this lesson. She does not seek to dominate or simply issue orders. Instead, she listens, acts decisively but thoughtfully, and seeks to transform the company culture from within. The final scene of the story, with Reina looking over the New York skyline and understanding that power walks in quietly, reinforces that real influence comes from integrity, empathy, and courage over time. Broader implications. Leadership is less about position or loud declarations and more about the impact on others. Inclusive leadership invites diverse voices and fosters collaboration. Quiet strength builds sustainable communities and resilient organizations. Lesson 5. Change is a journey, not a moment. The story's ending emphasizes that cultural and personal transformation is ongoing. The initial incident sparks change, but real progress requires continuous effort, patience, and commitment. Reflection. The metaphor of flight throughout the story reminds us that flying higher means constant adjustment, learning, and perseverance. One moment of reckoning is not enough. Change takes time, especially when it involves shifting deep-rooted norms and beliefs. This lesson encourages resilience. It acknowledges setbacks and imperfections, but insists on forward momentum. Gloria's mentorship program, ongoing training, and open conversations all point to a company and a society that is evolving step by step. Broader implications. Change efforts should be structured but flexible, recognizing the need for ongoing learning. Organizations should embed diversity and inclusion into their core values, not treat them as one-time initiatives. Individuals should view their growth as lifelong, embracing each experience as an opportunity to improve. Conclusion. Wings of Change is a powerful narrative that explores complex social issues through compelling characters and a gripping storyline. Its moral lessons resonate far beyond the fictional Meridian Lux and New York skyline, offering guidance for anyone seeking to build more just, empathetic, and accountable communities. By understanding the cost of prejudice, embracing accountability, committing to growth, valuing quiet power, and recognizing change as a journey, we can all take part in crafting a world where everyone has the right to fly. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, places, or events is purely coincidental. The purpose of this story is to provide moral lessons, motivation, inspiration, and valuable learning experiences for viewers. Please enjoy it with an open mind and heart. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this story. We hope it touched your heart and opened your mind to the power of understanding, accountability, and true leadership. If this story resonated with you, please consider exploring more videos on our channel. We share stories that inspire, challenge, and encourage growth in every part of life. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And if you have thoughts or reflections, leave them in the comments. We love hearing from you. Until next time, take care, stay compassionate, and keep soaring toward the best version of yourself.